This is the Decoding Obesity podcast, where we simplify, demystify, and decode obesity, helping you lose weight and feel great. So gear up for a fascinating journey through this ever-evolving field, and let's see what we find. And please remember that the thoughts and opinions on this podcast do not constitute medical advice. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info. And now, here's your host of the Decoding Obesity podcast, Dr. Avishkar Sabharwal.
Hi friend, welcome to this episode of the Decoding Obesity podcast. This is sort of a follow-up to the previous episode that we had last week. Last time we had discussed about reading the nutrition labels the right way. This week actually I wanted to focus on health halos. I'm sure you're wondering what do I mean by this. So listen on to find out more about it. Prajakta Apte actually joins me back again for this discussion, and I want to welcome her back. Hi Prajakta, welcome back.
Thank you. Hi, and nice to again, have me here as a guest. I am excited.
Yeah, no, this is very exciting, and I think it's very important, right? Because it's not just about the nutrition labels. I think there's a lot more that goes on the packaging of a food than just the nutrition label.
That's correct.
And the important thing to understand is that nutrition label does tell us about the science, but I think when we buy things, a lot of times our emotions and our feelings come into play. And there are certain things that definitely influence our buying decisions more than the nutrition labels. Sometimes just the way the food is packaged, it may be different and we may not even bother to look at the nutrition labels. So let's just talk about that and how important it is to understand what all of this is all about. So let's just start by defining what we mean by health halos, quote unquote, as we say. Simplistically, I think it's basically the marketing tricks that people use.
Mm-hmm. So the health halos is the perception that a particular food is good for you, even when there is a little or not much evidence to confirm that this is true. Now, it is when a particular food is thought to be healthy, so people will purchase it without, again, thinking too much about it and maybe thinking just that it's going to be the healthiest food, it's going to be good for my body. And people have a strong belief in that it's a good food for me. But in reality, there's no real evidence to back this up.
Yeah, I think that's important to understand that, a lot of times when these big companies put out these products which are packaged, you tend to kind of believe that maybe they've done their research and what they're putting on the packaging is all genuine and it's all real. But a lot of times that may not be the case, or even if they put out something that may be very, very weak science for whatever they're putting on the labels, and we take that as a fact. So let's just talk about what are these marketing gimmicks that these companies use.
So again, I'm going to touch base definitely the important ones, the most commonly used ones. Some companies, like for example, hype riding, like some companies capitalize on the current health learnings and trends such as omega-3 that has, everybody talks about it, or these days probiotics, like everyone talks about probiotics, the gut microbiome and everything. And marketing companies, food companies have started using these buzzwords, these terminologies into their products and supplements because they have been used commonly, and everyone wants to make sure that they are, with the flow, they are following everything that is out there. Now, I normally think that it is definitely important to avoid yourself in getting into this trap of buying blindly based on the buzzwords, and don't forget to think about the underlying product. Like, the other thing, what I would say is advertisement as coconut water being vegan, or seaweed that is gluten-free, or prunes that they have no cholesterol in it. The promises like these on the packaging are usually unnecessary, and perhaps it tries to target the lesser informed market or buyers. So I would say that when you look at something like this, stop. Ask a question to yourself, is this claim really obvious, or it is only trying to make a product more attractive so that, I may potentially fall into this trap and buy the product. So look at that, think about it, ask a question, and then make a balanced decision. That is what I always recommend people. Other thing I have seen commonly is products use natural claims, like all natural. Now, ideally, if you look at the FDA guidelines, FDA hasn't developed any specific definition for the use of this term, which means any package can basically use this phrase that 100% natural or all natural without having to answer any of the regulations. And sometimes extremely processed food, like, a food that is loaded with sugar, they can even put the label as 100% natural on its box because, there's no specific definition to what is exactly natural mean.
Yeah, and that's so important to understand, right? So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of go over some of the things that at least I've commonly seen on packaging and dissect those, if you will, and see, what the science is behind all of this. A lot of times we'll see terms like vegan or we'll see terms like paleo. And it's very important to understand, I think that, not everything that's vegan or it claims to be vegan is great.
Yeah.
And not everything that claims to be paleo, quote unquote, is like the best product for you.
Correct.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. Being vegan is definitely doesn't mean that you are eating the healthiest food on the earth. The vegan food, basically vegan is what? There are no animal products used in that. So that doesn't mean that the product is not processed. It could be highly processed product and it could be vegan because there's nothing used as the animal-based products in that. And I mean, naturally the food companies can claim that as vegan, which is, yes, true, but that doesn't mean that it's completely healthy for you. People do have a misconception that being vegan is a trend, and when I am vegan, that means I'm eating everything healthy, which is really not true. So I would definitely recommend that look at the product, look at the ingredients, read the food label carefully, ask a question whether this is really something that you want to purchase, it's going to fit into your meal plan, your health goals, everything, and absolutely then make a decision about that. Now, sometimes even the paleo products, again, the definition of paleo diet doesn't mean, again, that you are eating the healthiest food. The choices that you're making when it comes to meat, they could be not the cleanest meat products that you're buying. They could be even the products that are loaded with artificial ingredients, additives, and they may not be the good choices that you're making. So being vegan or following a paleo diet doesn't mean that you are doing the best thing for your health.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to know that, I actually once bought a paleo certified pancake mix. I'm sure our Paleolithic ancestors never ate pancakes. So, it's kind of understanding all of this and, synthesizing this information in our heads. I think when these buzzwords come onto these packaging, it kind of short circuits your brain to kind of, think that it's automatically healthy or think that's the right way to do things. And the one thing about vegan is, of course, if somebody's vegan for ethical reasons, that's a completely different ballgame. But what we're talking about here is about, the health effects of being vegan. Now, chips are vegan. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're healthy, right? The other thing that's really thrown around is reduced sugar or reduced fat. And let's just talk about that. What does that exactly mean? What is reduced sugar and what is reduced fat?
So yes, I mean, absolutely. Reduced sugar or reduced fat is a classic example of how marketing buzzwords lead to health halos on certain foods. Now, definitely fat provides some flavor to your food. And many times when fat is removed from the product, salt or sugar gets added into this product to make up the loss of the flavor. And again, fat-free food doesn't mean that it's healthy because you're taking the fat out, but you're adding some added sugar and salt in that to maintain the flavor so that you will keep purchasing those foods. Same thing with the reduced sugar. Reduced sugar products, definitely they have reduced the actual sugar in the product, but it gets replaced with artificial sweeteners that are generally added to, again, maintain the same level of sweetness. But artificial sweeteners, they have shown to slow down your metabolism, or they have shown to create the imbalance in your gut microbiome. And definitely, again, those reduced sugar and reduced fat foods are not something that you want to go with thinking that that's the best product you're buying.
One thing I noticed about, reduced sugar is when you look at the back of the packaging, you actually see that when they say reduced sugar, they'll say 25% less sugar. But, if something has 10 grams of sugar, that means they've just reduced 2.5 grams of sugar out of it, right? And that's not a lot, even though the packaging says 25% less. The percentage itself may be a lot higher than the actual amount that's gone down. And that's something very important to understand. The one thing that these marketing tools that these companies use are using percentage, because percentage numbers will be higher. And they kind of hijack our brains to think that and perceive that this is probably a healthier. Now, definitely if eating 7.5 grams of sugar versus 10 grams of sugar in a product is healthier, quote unquote, but it really in actuality doesn't make a huge difference in what's going on into, what's going into our bodies. Let's just talk about, these fruit snacks and juices. They say 100% natural, made from real fruit. So not made from fruit pulp. So what's the deal with all of that?
So definitely, I would like to say this for sure, that fruit snacks or fruit juices, even if whatever claims the manufacturing companies are making, these products cannot meet your requirement for a serving of a fresh fruit. So people are under the wrong impression that eating those individualized fruit snack packages, they will meet your requirement for a serving of one fruit. No, that is absolutely not true. That's the first thing. Now, fruit juices generally, even if, let's say, assume that they are made out of 100% natural juice, they will have some amount of added sugar in them. Plus, in the process of juicing, there is lots of fiber. So the nutritional value, the overall nutritional value of a juice is definitely not going to be enough, or it's not going to meet the bare minimum requirements. Similarly, on the fruit snacks, they have added sugar or artificial sweeteners. Colors can get added, additives can get added to kind of improve the flavor, so that product can stay longer or so-called in a fresh condition for a long time on the shelf. So try, I would say, not to buy these foods or replace these foods with the actual fresh fruit, or even, just don't think about that. I would always go with the fresh fruit. If not, then the frozen is the second best option.
Yeah, I was going to talk about frozen and, versus fresh vegetables. We always have this kind of a perception that fresh vegetables are better than frozen. But one thing that I want everybody to understand, and I think I've mentioned it in one of my previous episodes also, is that, these frozen foods or frozen vegetables are actually, they're packaged at source when they are picked right away. But these fresh fruits and vegetables that are available in the supermarkets, they're actually traveling. So the nutritional content actually goes down because of the whole travel that they've had and the way they're stored. So sometimes even if you don't have fresh fruits and vegetables available, you can still use the frozen versions, and they're actually going to be equally healthy, if not more.
Absolutely. And I would recommend that if you want to go with fresh, try to find a local farmer's market. Try to choose the locally grown fruits and vegetables, so that, at least we know that the traveling time for those fruits and vegetables is very minimum.
Right. That's true. What about, packaging, especially for breads, which says whole grains or 7 grains? What do you think about that?
So again, multigrain or whole grain, they are not interchangeable terms. The whole grain means that all parts of the grain kernel, like the bran, the germ, and the endosperm, they are used in the product. In contrast, multigrain means that a food contains more than one type of a grain, although that doesn't mean that it is necessarily a whole grain. So in multigrain or in 7-grain food products, one of the grain could be used that is made out of white flour. So it's not considered as a completely balanced or healthy food there.
Right. And that's very important to understand. So even if something says 7 grains, multigrains, that doesn't necessarily make it automatically healthier than a regular whole wheat kind of a bread or something that's made out of whole grains.
Right.
So that's definitely important to understand as well. The other thing that I have noticed, and a lot of times, the packaging will say 0 grams trans fat. Right? And it'll say 0 grams of this. So let's just talk about that, because that isn't necessarily true, right?
No, it is not true. And the US supermarket, I mean, if the product has less than 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving, the FDA allows the food label to read 0 grams of trans fat per serving. So when the trans fat is used, less than half a gram in the product, the manufacturing companies can officially put on the label as trans fat being 0 grams. And this is completely misleading. I mean, there's no way that I actually should go on the label as 0 grams. And we all know that trans fat is definitely absolutely bad for our health, putting us at a higher risk for heart diseases and stroke. And, a lot of new research are coming and saying that trans fats are bad. So even the smallest amount is not recommended. And that is why I always recommend people, even if you see 0 grams on the label, try to read the ingredient list on the packaged food, and ingredient list should say trans fat in there. However, it will not be listed as trans fat, but it will be listed as hydrogenated fat or partially hydrogenated fat. So if you read those words, definitely know that there is trans fat in the product.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's very, very important to understand, because sometimes the companies can actually decrease the serving size so that the trans fat will say 0 grams, because if the serving size is lower, the amount of trans fat, the total trans fat is going to be lower. It's not a percentage, it's an absolute amount. Mm-hmm. So, if it's less than 0.5 grams, they can easily say it's 0 grams, mm-hmm. but that may not necessarily be the case, because this has happened. Actually, I've seen products that say 0 grams trans fat, and if you look at the ingredients, it'll say hydrogenated palm oil. Mm. So that clearly means that there is some trans fat there, but just because it's meeting the guidelines, it's not being listed as having X amount of trans fat per serving. What about, these random terms that are thrown around like superfoods? I don't think it means anything, right? I mean, there are whole foods are superfoods.
Right, exactly. So the term superfood is definitely not regulated by USDA. And so marketers can actually use this phrase freely anytime. Now, FDA has not run any tests to measure the superiority of one health food to another. So labeling foods as superfoods can attract consumers, but benefit may not be that great. It may be very, very minimum benefits you might get from that food, even if it is labeled as superfoods.
Right. And the other thing that I'm seeing now is all the rage is cage-free eggs. So let's talk about that, because I think the definition of cage-free is very different from the perception that we have of cage-free.
Correct. So as you said, the definition of cage-free means that the birds are raised without cages, but it tells you nothing about any other living conditions. Now, for instance, cage-free eggs could come from birds that are raised indoors in a crowded spaces at a very large factory farm. So again, the cage-free doesn't mean what we think in our head as cage-free. So as I was saying, that it could be raised technically cage-free, but in an indoor environment. So again, that just defeats the purpose.
Yeah, and I mean also it doesn't tell you anything about the feed of the birds, what they're eating, what they're not eating. Correct. Because at the end of the day, when we think of cage-free, we think of free roaming birds that are going to be roaming around all day, eating all the natural foods, natural insects, whatever. And, that's going to go into their eggs and, make the eggs healthier. But that may not necessarily be the case. They may just have humans giving them whatever feed they're giving them, and they could still be cage-free. So that's very important to understand. Other thing that I do see a lot is, again, organic. Yeah. Right? So I'm not saying that organic is not good, but the data, the science, I think, is very limited in terms of whether they're actually beneficial or superior to the other foods which are not raised in organic conditions.
Correct. And especially I would like to talk here that I have been even noticing, I'm sure everyone has noticed probably, that even the packaged foods are these days labeled as organic. And it's important for everyone to keep in mind that the term organic is not synonymous with healthy. Definitely not. Like, for example, organic mac and cheese is still mac and cheese, and that could be loaded with, a lot of fat and added salt and everything. Organic candy is still a candy, and eating in excess, just like conventional sugar, it's not good for you. So especially if you see those terms on a packaged food, that means nothing. I mean, do not definitely get carried away with that term and simply put the product in your cart thinking that it's a healthy food to choose.
One thing that I see very often is made from organic sugar, and it just makes me laugh because it doesn't matter, right? Because the body is not going to recognize organic sugar differently from, say, regular sugar. So the other thing, and I think this is probably with respect to obesity, I think this becomes really, really important that I want to talk about, is the fact that sugar has many names, and it does not always say sugar. It can have different ways of putting it in. And one form of sugar is not necessarily healthier than the other form, right? So what are the common types of sugar that are used by companies instead of just saying cane sugar?
I think the common terms are like sucrose, that has been commonly used, coconut nectar or palm nectar. These are the terms that are commonly used on the food labels or on the ingredient list.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that, these companies will use agave nectar, they'll use honey, but the body doesn't really recognize this differently from your regular sugar. We very commonly understand high fructose corn syrup, which is, a very common product. Right. We also understand sugar, we understand cane sugar. But what ends up happening is when they put in stuff like honey, they put in stuff like agave nectar, we think it's probably because it's a more natural, quote unquote, natural product. It's going to be healthier for us. But that may not necessarily be the case because the body will still recognize it as sugar.
Correct.
And it's going to metabolize it in the same way.
Right.
So that's very important to understand. That doesn't necessarily make the food healthier.
No.
The science does not prove that it's any healthier than your regular sugar.
I think it's just when the honey is used instead of regular sugar or agave nectar is used instead of sugar, I would look at it as it's probably a little bit less processed as compared to the actual white sugar. But other than that, there's no difference when it comes to raising the blood sugar or, adding the same amount of calories, whether it's the use of honey or use of sugar in that product.
Right. And, one fascinating thing that's there in the marketing psychology is the use of the colors on the labeling, right? So if it's going to be packaged in with earthy colors like bright green, brown, it kind of gives a perception it's healthier.
Correct.
But you have to understand that that's a marketing trick that's kind of trying to hijack the brain to feel that, this product is the right thing for me. So very important to understand that.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah.
Anything else that you've come across, in your studies and what you've seen with your clients?
I feel that, make your decision as a balanced decision. Just because you are hearing something and you're looking the different advertisements on the television doesn't mean that that's a healthy product. Just because others are buying, you should go with that trend. Absolutely not true. Read carefully, not just the label, but the ingredients. And the first 5 ingredients are used in maximum quantity in that food. As you go towards the end of the list, it's being used in smaller amounts. General rule of thumb, I would say that longer the list, that means the food is highly processed. Minimum ingredients you see on the food packaging, that means it's not that much of a processed product.
Well, yeah, I think that's great. We've covered quite a lot of ground today. I think that should definitely decode all of our food packaging, right? We've had 2 episodes on this, one reading the nutrition labels and one talking about the marketing trick that the companies use. I think that has been a very great discussion. Thank you again so much, Prajakta, for joining me for this one. This was a lot of fun for me to talk about.
Thank you. It was great pleasure.
Well, dear listener, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you've learned something from this episode. And I do hope that next time when you go to the supermarket to buy something, you keep these pointers in mind. I guess that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all next time.
You've been listening to the Decoding Obesity podcast. Please remember, the information in this podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely of the host and his guests and do not constitute medical advice. Views and opinions on this show do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of any organization. And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening in. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.